In order to first break down the observation of what running in truther circles means, we must first observe and start to break down what it means to be running in distractive circles. So there are many different variations of distractive circles out there, but it really breaks down to a few larger categories of distraction. The first and most obvious distraction that's out there are the minds that are completely distracted and love it. This is the mind of the masses. This is the mind that is largely distracted by cartoons, mainstream media, mainstream so-called education, mainstream belief systems, mainstream religions, mainstream across the board, mainstream food. So you distract your body with, or weigh your body down with heavy distraction, foods or things that you put into your body, into your physical body, into your psychological body, into your soul body. These things that you put into your various bodies, your various layers of yourself that don't really add to your expansion. They don't add to the lightening of who and what you are to elevate yourself. They add to the weighing down of who and what you think you are in order to distract yourself into a more complex version of the reality that you are observing, the reality that you are experiencing, the reality that you are projecting for yourself to experience. So the heavier your reality is within this experience, the more leeches and parasites can benefit from your lack of elevation. This benefit comes from your lack of elevation over time. As you are not elevating yourself, you're not making the most of the time that you have. You're making your way through time at the least common denominator that is needed to survive. So in that primal survival mode of time, your spiritual time, your higher mind time is actually being siphoned off by those in the non-physical and sometimes in the physical who are aware of your time and the preciousness of that time. So on a massive scale, the non-physical and physical beings who are benefiting, parasiting off of your various layers of time, they are benefiting from the broad spectrum approach of distraction like the mainstream media and all of the other mainstream circuits that are designed specifically to keep you at a certain vibration. So that's the largest group that's out there. That's the masses, what people call the sheep and so on and so forth. They will just follow and so-called evolve themselves into the next layer of mind control, into the next layer of distraction that will set the baseline, set the foundation for the next version of deeper control on every layer, the soul, the mind, and the body. So the people who are aware of, at least to a certain degree, the reality, the existence of the mainstream mind control, the mainstream distraction. After that, you have the minds that know something is off. They know something is off. They know something is going on, but have chosen the distraction. So they are aware to some degree that there are systems designed to distract them, but they have chosen to envelop themselves within that distraction. They do it for various reasons, and many different people do it for basically survival. Once you break that survival system that has been controlled by the parasites don't have a host anymore. We are forced into a system to allow them to host upon our basic human needs. So the minds that know something is off and they know something is going on but choose distraction can live their entire lives in that space, no different than the individuals who are completely distracted and love it. So those are two different things, but ultimately they create the same outcome. You could argue that people who love it, who love the distraction, actually pay more energy into that system, but at the same time there's a more complex version that is being a complex version of energy that's being siphoned off of the individuals who are aware of such information, because they also have the opportunity to do more with that. This is why I make a lot of these videos, to help people get off the fence and start realizing these different layers of these different possibilities that they have with themselves. Because when we get in these circles, there's a tendency that the ego has to create another version of finalization, another level of completion. The ego starts to celebrate itself once it gets to a point of comfort. So all of these layers, all of these systems, these mind frames are basically layers of comfort. When you're a child, you don't know what is comfortable. You don't know where to go or who you are. So you choose who and what you are based upon mimicking other people, peers, older people, until you come to a space of where you fit in society, and the baseline being your survival, then building up your persona, your character, and largely the mainstream mindset of all layers creates a distraction, and then people start to love it. Unfortunately, the system is so complex that there are so many different ways that people can love that distraction, because the distraction is running 24/7. It's even running when people are asleep. It's running in their subconscious mind. So once people consume themselves with that space, it's hard to even get out of, even in a lifetime. The second layer of the people who are, by the numbers, a little bit older a lot of the times, have children, have more survival responsibilities. So as they get older, they have the potential to learn more about themselves and about the system overall. And since their anchors are tethered to still providing for a survival system, they can't really go anywhere. So a lot of the times, the easier thing to do is just to go with the flow. Just allow their survival system to be the focus, because that's what everybody else is doing. That's what's needed at the lowest form of existence. Just get by. So the third layer of the distractive mind frame are the minds that are in transition and have chosen another distraction. So let's say you've become aware of the distractions that are out there, and you don't choose to be distracted anymore because you have the opportunity to elevate yourself. Well, when you elevate yourself, there are these various layers, communities of distraction that are available to people, because this is another version of mainstream control. This is another way to maintain the illusion of elevation through being distracted on a deeper level. So when you have these individuals who are in this transition space, they're very vulnerable to manipulation, vulnerable to trap doors in a sense, because their anchors have been lifted up and they're moving somewhere else. They're painstakingly looking for somewhere to plant their roots. And anything that seems, even on the outside, to look safe, to look healthy, to look like it's more elevated than they are or who they were, that will be taken on as something better. And it's not all the time that something better than who you were is something better than who you are to become. And just because something is better than who you were doesn't mean that there isn't another pathway that is more optimal to who it is that you're trying to become. But a lot of the times people choose the easy route, and the easy routes are the ones who are filled with a lot of other people. This is why we gravitate towards certain communities. We trust the fact that other people are in certain mind frames, are in certain pathways, so we follow those pathways that have already been walked upon. So this is why certain communities or circles are so attractive to people. And nowadays, what I've been speaking about on my channel is kind of exposing the downfalls of a lot of these pathways that are filled with trapdoors. One of the main trapdoors that goes along with catching people in transition is what I've called and many other people have called the New Age community. Now, the New Age community really is another version of mainstream distraction, mainstream mind control. The New Age community can affect you both personally and collectively. And that's the focus I'm going to start to transition into with this video right now, the difference between personal and collective elevation. So you have synthetic personal and collective elevation, like a mainstream version of personal and collective elevation. With the new age, the synthetic personal elevation that you have is based upon taking your attention, taking your time, and channeling it into a certain mode, into a certain distraction, and a distraction that has taken on the perspective of not being a distraction. So now you've accepted yourself, your elevation is the new distraction because it's not seen as a distraction, it's seen as who you are. So a lot of the ways that people distract themselves by claiming to be different individuals is to take the tools that they are using to elevate themselves and share that as part of their character, part of who they are. So in the New Age community, you have people who are heavy into yoga, crystals, meditation, all of these different modes and all these other things. On their own, largely, there's nothing wrong with yoga. There's nothing wrong with meditation. There's nothing wrong with crystals. These things are just tools. But when you gather all of these tools and use them for a particular purpose, like the illusion of elevation, then they can become dangerous. And this is basically what the New Age community is based upon. It's profit based upon selling individuals tools in hopes that they will use those tools in perpetuity because the people selling those tools make a profit off of those tools. It's very much like leaders. The difference between leaders and follower creators. People who are looking to make a profit off of leadership will not make a profit off of leadership if they create more leaders, because you will not have any more followers. People who are looking to make a profit off of leadership turn whatever mode that they're using and calling leadership into follower creators. So this is the difference between a leader and a follower creator. But it's the same concept as people who are helping other people by sharing tools to elevate other people, and people who are selling tools in order to maintain control over those individuals by keeping them in the space of utilizing those tools forever. This is the same way the mainstream media maintains sickness and disease psychologically in many other ways, in partnership with the medical industry, who isn't about healing people, but is more about maintaining sickness and disease because you can make a profit off of sick individuals over time. Maintain the side effects, maintain the diseases, don't cure them. There's no profit in the cure. There's only profit in maintaining the sickness and the disease. So these communities, these leaders are in very many different ways maintaining sickness and disease on various layers of these individuals' experience, physically, psychologically, and spiritually. Those who focus on spiritual tools, elevation tools, are maintaining sickness and disease on the deepest layers of these individuals' experience. Of course, when you bring this stuff to light, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to fight this, because a lot of those tools have now taken on the perspective of being who these individuals are. They now own, they are no longer who they are the tools that they use. The tools have become their character. In order to elevate yourself, you have to strip yourself from all of these things, all of the weight that you have used to get to where you are. Eventually, you're going to be naked, physically, psychologically, and spiritually naked. If you take these tools and you wear these tools in your tool belt forever, you can only be able to go so far. And the more you are weighed down by these tools in your tool belt, the more individuals who are selling these tools can make a profit off of you through the slowing down of your time. So this is why leaders, so-called leaders, which are actual follower creators, can only grow so much, can only share your growth so much, which is why they only focus on information, certain subjects, certain topics, because those individual subjects, those individual topics never have a goal in mind. They never get anywhere. They're only about maintaining your distraction on a deeper level. And that leads into the next mind frame, which are the minds that are aware of the distraction mind frame and are now goal oriented. So the difference between this layer and the last layer is that the previous layer, where people are in transition, are not goal oriented. They might have the illusion of having goals, but those goals are really empty. Like the New Age community, for example, is largely dangerous because it is consuming time, the time of these individuals who have elevated themselves to a very highly functional, spiritually and psychologically functional space. So one could argue that their time is actually more concentrated. So individuals who have let go of a lot of these tools that they've used, who have freed themselves from a lot of the distraction that the mainstream has put out there, their time is more potent in so many different ways. So if you are in the business of distracting, high vibrational beings, then you are in a deeper layer of mind control than a lot of these mainstream sorcerers. And a cousin to those new age manipulators are people that are involved in truther circles. Because a lot of these truther circles that are not goal oriented, they're only focused on information with the illusion of sharing information so people can grow and do things on their own. No, a lot of these so-called truther circles are designed specifically to maintain your distraction. Truth is not based upon the exposing of lies. Truth is all encompassing. So this goes into something that I've coined calling the debunker complex, which is basically truth without any goals. It lives at the failure of others. This goes into the difference between leaders who create leaders and leaders who are really just follower creators. These follower creators make a business out of whatever it is their focus is. So you have people like David Icke, you have InfoWars, you have flat earthers, you have conspiracy theorists, you have whatever it is, they have a specific mode, a specific focus. And there's nothing wrong with that focus. But when you are saying that this is the only thing that you need to focus on and nothing else, you are actually not involved in truth anymore. You're really selling something. And you could argue to an extent, you're creating a cult mentality. Because anybody who thinks outside of the mindset of your focus, they are breaking the rules of your cult. If you challenge the mindset of your follower creator, then you're challenging the mindset of that cult. This is a side effect that happens to individuals who are caught up in that transition and maintain a new version of who and what they are. Now what you say, and even your existence, not even what you say, just your very existence becomes a threat to their following. So why these truther circles are dangerous in so many different ways is, for example, the New Age. One of the main things that keeps people in that New Age circle of running is this idea of nothing and everything. The New Age is, oh, well, all is one, all is everything, and I'm a part of that. So the end, that's it, I'm done. Let's just all be happy now. They've achieved their enlightenment. They've achieved their elevation to its highest point. Why? Because personally they think that they are the most that they can ever be. Why? Because who they are is better than who they were. And who you are to become isn't based upon who you were. That's the illusion that people get trapped in. That's what these transition hooks, that's when these transition hooks get set in, is because people are selling you, largely in the New Age community, for example, people are selling you who you are to become based upon who you were, how jacked up you were, Now that you are no longer who you were, now you are this individual that has all these tools in your tool belt. But is that who you are, or are you still in transition? Are you still learning? Are you still evolving? See, this is the downside to these truther and new age circles. So like I said, in the new age community, you're nothing in everything. But on the other side, in the truther circles, your everything is in nothing. You say, well, I know everything. I know all the truths. I know this community does this community does this community does this. All these communities are doing all this. It's all based upon distraction. I know all these truths. I know all these distractions. And that's it. There's no goals there. So you are basically the same as the everything and nothing, just as the nothing and everything. So you're aware of everything, but now, what is to become of that? Nothing. So it's just another version. It's just another version of the ego. It's ego-based, ego-focused, ego elevating, under the guise of elevating oneself. And taken to the extreme in both New Age but more in particular in truther circles, a lot of these truther circles are based upon the idea, the illusion of elevating themselves at the expense of others who are either not elevating themselves, who are trapped, who are still distracted, whatever it is. But the focus is other people. It's other people. Look, come over to this group. Why? Because that group is not moving. That group is messed up. That group is doing whatever it is. It's not allowing people to think for themselves, but is celebrating the failure of others. And that is what makes you elevated. You're only going to be able to go so far at the expense of others. Unfortunately, that's an easy route because it's very external. It's very projective. So people are the narcissistic mentality easily learns from projection. So because there's no responsibility there. So the systems that are based upon projection are going to be more attractive to people, especially people who aren't really aware of the deeper mind controls, and especially to people who are looking. They're completely uprooted from who and what they were. They don't have any systems or have any deeper connections to themselves to grab onto. So they're looking for something else to grab onto. So a fight against other people is easy to grab onto because it makes you feel a certain way. And in a fight, it's easy to be caught up in that distractive circle, that distractive truther circle, because you can jump between the aggressor and the victim very easily. Why? Because you have no goals. You're worried about what other people are thinking and seeing you as. So at any one point, you can team up and be the aggressor. But if somebody else comes to you with a more complex version of what's going on that exposes your tool belt, your lack of elevation, your downfalls, then you can also play the victim. Why? Because you're surrounded by other victims. This is the downside to having and being involved in these circles of followers, basically. So back to the minds that are aware of the distraction mind frame and are now goal-oriented, whether that be personal or collective, whether you have personal goals or collective goals, it doesn't really matter because that's your choice. Not everybody is going to go into the collective goal focus. It's not everybody's mindset. It's not everybody's pathway. But you have the choice to either personally elevate yourself or get involved in the awareness of collective elevation. Now, when I say that, it doesn't mean that there's a goal like the New Age puts out there. Let's enlighten ourselves and go into the Galactic Federation of Light with our alien brethren and so on and so forth. It's nothing like that. I'm not saying that. Just know that that's another distraction that's out there that's being sold to individuals. It's also being used by the mainstream community right now with the so-called releasing the disclosure of this alien information. Don't think that they're not using that for another version of mind control. What I've said in previous videos is that that information is going to be released by the government because people are used to getting their information from the government for a particular purpose. Whether they get more funds in their alien space force system, or they get more psychological and spiritual funds from, getting everybody to say, we're all human, we're all one. Why? Because there are aliens out there. We need to defend ourselves from either the bad aliens or join together as humans with the good aliens. At the end of the day, the main purpose in that whole experience is to continue to follow these so-called leaders, because they have all the answers, they have all the information, and they are the driving force of where so-called humanity is supposed to go. But the main point that I share on my channel is that these individuals are sharing that information. They are putting that so-called disclosure mindset out there as a means to distract you from your ancestral power, from empowering yourselves, from your history. Continue to look forward, continue to focus on the future. Why? To distract you from the power of your past. If you're only looking at one side, if you're only looking at the future, you're going to miss out on the past. You're going to miss out on the present. If you're only looking on the past, you're going to miss out on how far you can go into the future and how much you can do with the present moment. The optimal space is to focus on all three equally and not leave anything out. The truther communities, various layers of truther communities, they pick either the future or the past or the present moment. Focus only on the moment. And then you have conscious communities. Look what these people have done to us in the past. And then you have other community, mainstream communities. We're evolving, putting implants in our brains. We're, creating robots and all this computer technology to usher us into the future. And aliens are coming in and all this other stuff. You have these different layers of so-called critical thinkers, but they're only critical within a box. In order to not be limited by either the past, the present, or the future, you have to have an awareness, a knowledge of the past, the present, and the future without sacrificing either one of them. And a lot of these truther circles have to sacrifice parts of the past, the present, and the future in order to maintain the focus of their following. This is why a lot of information that is shared outside of their follower perspective is seen as a threat. When you get to the space of people who are in that elevated mode, either focusing on the personal or the collective approach, you're going to have some people that can take an entire lifetime to handle personal goals, while the few remaining are going to focus on addressing the collective approach. Keep in mind that focusing on a few collective issues is not the same as a collective approach. This is where you can get entire communities to start barreling and creating another group of distraction because they have taken collective issues at the expense of a collective approach. That's like fighting battles without the knowledge of a war. But you can make money off of continually battling the world, battling other communities, battling other individuals. These are just battles at the expense of the knowledge of the depths of the war. And you can make an entire mindset. You can create an entire lifetime of fighting battles. Why? Because there's profit in battles. There's not a profit in facing the war and dealing with the war. And when you're only focusing on the battles at the expense of the war, you're not really addressing the war. You're keeping the war going on. So people can say all the time, well, I'm doing I'm fighting all these battles. I'm on the front lines. But if your mindset, if your knowledge base is only based upon the knowledge of battles and of battle in general at the expense of the depths of the war, you're actually doing more harm than good, and you're not fighting battles towards the end of a war. You don't have a goal in mind. You have profit in mind. Collective issues without the knowledge or drive towards an all-encompassing collective approach is just another distraction mode. Focusing on just issues without adjusting the entire approach is another distraction. So like I said, you have the New Age community that provides mostly personal, but on the grand scale, the way the New Age community is viewed as a whole, it's also collective. But largely it's personal. They are providing personal distraction systems, while the truther community provides a synthetic collective approach, because their individual truths are not goal oriented. They're not focusing on the war at hand. They don't take into account all of the modes involved in that so-called truth. It's only the issue. It's only the individual thing. And when you're in that space, the truth, the issues will only go as far. They'll only go up to a certain point. So like I said earlier, like you have individuals like Alex Jones on InfoWars, David Icke, Flat Earth, Zeitgeist. They have goals, but their goals are not really goals that are dealing with the war. They're goals that are dealing with particular battles. And when you have individuals who are so-called in the truther circles that are definitely a part of deeper distraction, deeper mind control, like Alex Jones, once they expose all of that information, once they expose all of that and they have their roots firmly planted in people believing that they are truthers and they are leaders, then they can just steal your time because you're following them. They can steal your time by just adjusting the pathway to another version of distraction. So this is why you have Alex Jones now, who is just, hanging out with celebrities who have various platforms, and he's just joking. All the information he shared about these pedophiles and the aliens and the deep state and all this other stuff, he downplays it by going on these other channels and just, joking now. So now he has all of these groups of people who are going to take that same approach as their leader. They're going to say, oh, well, this is how you act with this knowledge, because he thinks that he has won he's won the war, or winning the war, when he's really just involved in these tiny little battles that he's creating himself. They're synthetic battles because they're operated by an artificial system, a system that has put him out there, a system that has put these controlled oppositions out there to have these synthetic battles be fought, to project the illusion that a war is being won. Whether they are put out there by the system or not, the effectiveness is what really matters. The attachments that they have to their particular focus is what really matters, because that attachment is what steals your time. That attachment is what parasites onto the individual who accepts them as their leader, who accepts that mode of thought as their character. That's what slows you down. That's what weighs you down. And that's what bombards you with more distraction. And in these circles, in these so-called truther circles, you have information being shared, simply exposing lies, being accepted as truth. That's not what so-called truth is. But that's the mindset that has been accepted by individuals, because the lies are so prevalent within our reality that if you're even sharing a little bit of truth, you're going to be seen and put on a pedestal as a leader. So as those truths based upon exposing lies get more complex, as these individuals who are sharing those so-called truths based upon people exposing lies gets more complex, this is when the so-called truth becomes counterproductive. And what I've been saying on this channel is it becomes dangerous. This is why I share the information, my perspective on this as much as possible, and sharing the information of various teachers who have different modes of information for people to learn from these various teachers and become whoever it is that they are to become. Lead yourself. Don't allow yourself to be consumed by these various communities and circles, because ultimately it's just another mode of stealing your time. And that's one of the biggest crimes that's going on here across the board, is the time stealing. This is not to say that these truther circles are completely irrelevant and whatever, just because they're dangerous. I've learned a lot from the flat earth community, David Icke, even Alex Jones. I've learned information from all these different groups of individuals that are out there, all these different teachers. But once you allow that focus to consume who and what you are, and eventually all of your time, that's when it becomes counterproductive. That's when it becomes dangerous. And that's what the YouTube system is based upon. Generating followers, generating what they're calling subscribers, but it's generating followers. It's not a space for generating leaders. They don't pay people who generate leaders. They shadow ban individuals who are sharing information or modes of content that focus on generating leaders. The system is in the business of generating time stealers, distractions. And like I said earlier, those who are in line to do more with their time, if you are distracting those who are in line to do more with their time, they're equipped to do more. Their time is a more potent form of potentiality. And that's actually a deeper form of, it's more dangerous on different layers. Largely because the distractive truth is a more concentrated form of dopamine compared to mainstream dopamine. Distractive truth is more personal than the mainstream truth. It comes from a deeper source. So when you have so-called truthers in these truther circles and new agers in these new age circles sharing information that, whether they know it or not, is based upon stealing your time, it's actually more effective in the war, in the larger war that is going on, because those are the individuals who have a greater potential to not only lead themselves and affect the grander scheme of things, but those individuals have the potential to also create more systems that are leader based, creating leaders rather than creating followers. Those who dedicate their so-called leadership to online systems, they are follower creators. They are not leaders. Real leaders set up the systems that create more leaders. Real leaders are leader focused, not follower based. It's the same way that there's a difference between entertainment and knowledge. Like on the mainstream media, you have all these channels who are sharing information about aliens and ghosts and Sasquatch and all this other stuff. But how are they sharing that information? They're sharing it from a space of not knowing, from a space of never knowing anything. They'll never show you an alien. They'll never show you a Sasquatch. They're in a space of continually wanting to know, but never finding out. So never getting anywhere. So continually fighting a battle and never really winning, just allowing the battle to keep going on. That battle is based upon ignorance. Whereas you have other people who share information that is more knowing based. Like, for example, people who share information on Sasquatch that are saying, well, this is what people have seen. This is what people have experienced. We know that this exists. Whereas on the TV, they're saying, oh, well, this could be this great hairy man out there. There's no growth there. There's no room for elevation. You're in a constant space of knowing, not knowing. And meanwhile, when they're selling that ignorance, they're also installing, like I said in previous videos, what your knowingness should be. So, for example, in these ghost shows, you're always questioning, do ghosts exist? You know, all this other stuff. But what are they selling you does exist? The power of Christianity or certain mainstream religions. So whether the ghosts exist or not doesn't really matter. You fill in the blanks and say, okay, well, they do exist because they made a TV show about it. But what you're not really paying attention to is how they are selling you the deeper mindset of what's more powerful than these ghosts. Well, it's mainstream Christianity, religions. That's why they have these television shows on. And that's just in your face. You can see that's obvious. You can see what they're selling. What makes truther circles and new age circles more dangerous is you can't really see what they're selling because they're just in the business of making a profit off of followers. Even more sinister than that is people who are involved in these truther and new age circles. A lot of them do have an undercover system that they're trying to sell, and they are just making a profit in the meantime towards a certain profit later on down the road with the bigger mainstream systems. This is what I'm saying the New Age community as a whole is based upon, which is why you have Oprah and Deepak Chopra and all these other individuals who are now transitioning into a more enlightened, more evolved version of humanity and coming together. This coexist bumper sticker that is being sold to the masses as the new way of being human. The opposite side of that is you have like people selling, the transhumanism community selling your evolution of humanity through joining with technology, putting technology into your biology. So the takeaway from this, there's a lot to take away from this. I just wanted to share is that be aware of these systems that are out there. Be aware of these so-called leaders who are actually follower creators. And if you are in that space of transition or you are caught up within some of those circles, challenge yourself to break out those circles. Challenge yourself to lead yourself. Challenge yourself to not have to be constantly inundated with information that is based upon a battle, and find out what the war is about. Find out what's beyond the mainstream distractive entertainment. Find out what's beyond the truthertainment that's out there. These truther circles that are basically entertaining you now, based upon stealing your time for profit. New age circles that are based upon stealing your time for profit. Break those chains. Break out of those comfort blankets and start elevating yourself on every layer without all the tools that you've had in your tool belt that you've been used to for so long. Because these groups, these circles who are focusing on this information, who are sharing very important truth, very important information towards expanding the awareness, towards elevating people. Once that information turns into entertainment for profit, that entertainment, that information has now taken on a different face and is being shared at the expense of knowledge. Truther circles, New Age circles focused on battles over time are stealing time at the expense of the knowledge of the greater war.